All right. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about The Bands of Mourning, which is the third book in the Wax and Wayne series by Brandon Sanderson. You might have just watched my Shadow Self video and be like, but Gent, you're in the same clothes. And you would be correct because I blew through these books because I'm driving a lot to class. So I'm listening to a ton of audiobooks right now, which is great because that means I can get through more books and that means I can review more books for everyone, and we can talk about them. So, there are things I missed in this book, by the way. The first couple times I've read through it, and or maybe I just forgot about them, but I feel like I wouldn't have forgotten about them. But I feel like I have a lot more context for this book now with Oathbringer and Rhythm of War in my back pocket that I know about, and just a little bit more about the Cosmere knowledge. This book is, I think, is really good. I kind of talked about Shadow of Self being, I feel like, the worst of the three books, which doesn't mean it's bad. It just means out of the three, it's the one I think is the worst. Um, I would say it's tough for me because I really like the first book a lot, but I think this book might outshine it a little bit. There are certain aspects that I think slow it down, but there's a lot of really good stuff in it. I kind of talked about this in Shadow of Self, and I'm gonna say it again here because I think it's something that Sanderson really does well in this series in particular. Which, I mean, he does characters well everywhere, but in this series, he does this thing where, like, it's almost like every book, he's very hyper focused on making sure that these characters that maybe haven't got as much screen time get the time they deserve to really become a fully fleshed out character. And this book is definitely the Steris book. I love Steris in this book. I went from, like, in the first book, I remember the first time reading it, and I was like, wow, she is real something. And then by the time I got to the third book, I was like, wow, that opinion has shifted like 180 degrees, and I'm on the complete opposite side of the spectrum now. And he doesn't even do it by like I mean, I would say it maybe as a little bit retconning, but it's not really. He basically uses the things that he's set up, but allows himself to build on those to give himself, you know, things to work with to build his character, which is because she doesn't fundamentally really change. We just get to know more about her, which makes her more interesting, which makes her more of a character, right? Like her personality is still. I mean, I would say she opens up and, like, I would say thaws out a little bit. Like, she's not as, like, cold as she felt in the first book. Um, like, she actually shows some real emotion, whereas in the first book it felt very much like a blank, like, slate. But we get, he kind of gives reasons and explains why she was like that. And I don't know if he was setting that up from the beginning or if he, knowing Sanderson, I'm sure he probably had a plan for that from the beginning, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna make everyone hate this character, or not hate it, but not like this character in the first book, and then we're gonna slowly change their minds. I don't trust a lot of writers to do that to me, but the Sanderson, I think that's the best example of him making a character that I just like. I think she might be one of my favorite characters. It's really hard because I really love all the characters in the series, but she, like, in this book in particular, she kind of stands above the rest because I think we get more perspective and we get some, like, good funny moments from her of just, like, doing something that's pragmatic and practical but is also terrifying and doesn't make any sense for her to be doing. But she, like she kind of becomes part of the team finally, and it's cool. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited by book 4. Um yeah, I think that's my biggest pro for this book. I mean, Wax and Wayne and Marcy are still pretty good characters. They still have a lot of good stuff going on. They're, you know, they're doing their thing. They're always going to be cool. I think that Another big pro is the expansion of the world building in this book. I I like it. I have some problems with it, which is kind of my problems with it are basically like there's a whole nother continent in this world that we haven't known about at all until this point. Um, which kind of makes sense because of everything that's gone on and how the world has changed over the course of, you know, the history of the story so far. But I just felt like it was like kind of weird that we're just finding out now. But at the same time, I'm just like, okay, whatever. Um, I really like the difference in culture. I like the difference in like almost genetic makeup. Like the other people can't survive in colder regions. So like cold is actually like really dangerous for them, whereas like they can survive in a lot hotter weather because they've just adapted over, you know, like over 1,000 years basically to become better off to live in that. And the fact that it kind of also sets up that like everything Harmony did to fix the world kind of messed it up for other people, which I think is good because it does set up that like good, I would say, that traditional balance that we see within Mistborn, this like, you know, preservation and ruin kind of being hand in hand, that if you try to actually help people you might end up harming people in the way in a certain way. Critiques of the book. I think my biggest thing in this book, again, this is another thing that really, I mean, we haven't gotten book, I can't remember when this came out. It's been a while, though, since this book came out. I think 2016, maybe, and we're in 2021 right now. I know he's working on book 4 right now, and he intended to release book 4 after at least the third book of the Stormlight Archives. But there's a lot of like, with this setup, with his Wax's sister, there's a lot of these open ends that left me kind of feeling at the end. I also think that in the concluding part, this is a bit of a spoiler, but basically they're going after the Bands of Mourning, which is what the book's about, and there's like the fake bands and then the fake bands, and we find out the real one was secretly being held by the group from the beginning, basically. It wasn't bad. It just felt kind of like it could have been set up maybe just like a little bit better. Like Wayne doesn't really think through things, but maybe if he had like at least like hinted at that earlier, that because he might have, it would have been really cool if he had known. I think that would have made me a little bit more satisfied because it just felt very much like not a convenience because it was set up, but very much just like the conclusion was like, okay, can we just please get to the point? Like, I get it. The temple is built and the people who built it are very clever and know that they need to protect this very powerful artifact from people. Cool. Let's get past that and just get to the good stuff instead of like this constant setup. I think there just was like a kind of like a, I feel like it was like he wanted to do he had all these scenes he wanted to do, and he kind of needed to draw it out a little bit longer. This is kind of what it felt like to me. There is one more positive though with that. I think that the moment, again, another spoiler, so if you don't want a spoiler for this, the moment where Wax dies and Wayne sees it, and like there's that character moment of like the I can't do this without you moment. Oh god, that got me so much. And like Wax comes back, which is also a spoiler, but which I think is well done as well. But like I think that moment of character for Wayne to overcome his fear, because he kind of realizes that for what he's been doing, like while he's been doing good and stuff like that, this fear of guns has led way to his friends potentially being in danger. And he kind of takes up, like, I feel like he very much like grows up through the course of this book. And I think that's good because there's like this matureness about him. And I'm interested to see, like, I still want to get the classic good old Wayne, but I think that what we'll see from him in book 4 will be a little bit more tempered and a little bit more adult than what he has been up to this point. Because I think he kind of realizes now that, like, what would happen if, you know, I lost Wax? Like, that means that I'm going to be the one leading this thing now. Well, I need to make sure that I can be as good of an example. Again, just fantastic character moments. Just fantastic. All right. I think that's going to be it for this one. I mean, I could talk about this book for a while, but I think I should stop there. As always, be sure to comment down below if you have different opinions or you want to talk about it at all. Maybe you really don't like these books. Maybe you really do like these books and you want to talk to me about it. Either way. And then be sure to subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot, and I really appreciate it. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching.